Hi everyone, Teri Wellbrock here of the Healing Place podcast, and have a beautiful conversation with Anna Ditchburn coming up. Wanted to tell you, first of all, I have a Healers of Hilton Head special series I'm putting out on Mondays and Wednesdays right now, and just wanted to invite you to join into those conversations as well, even if you're not on Hilton Head Island, because we're having conversations about so many different healing modalities. And so this podcast has been downloaded in 120 countries around the world. Yay! And so no matter where you're tuning in the world, you can learn about these different healing strategies and see if it's something that's available in your own community. So yeah, be sure to tune into those. And just a reminder that the podcast, Still Celebrating, that has been downloaded or is now rated in the top 2.5% globally out of 2.8 million shows. Wow! It's so amazing. So thank you. I thank you for that. My heart hugs yours. And so much gratitude for you being here, listening, liking, sharing, commenting, inviting others to join us. So thanks again. All right, now for tonight's episode. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I am your host, Teri Wellbrock, coming off a recovery of had a kidney stone attack last week, and finally feeling so much better and back at it. So today's my first day of functioning again. So what a way to start functioning again. I am so excited to have with me today Anna Ditchburn, and she is world's best life optimization coach. I love that. And host of the world's best trauma recovery podcast, which I have been on. And again, super thrilled to have you. So welcome, Anna.
Teri, it's such an honor to be here and to be a first guest after your recovery. Oh my goodness, you went through so much.
Thanks.
I'm so glad you feel better. So
Oh,
glad.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It was, yeah, that was quite a journey. I don't recommend kidney stones to anyone ever. And
Not
this,
that it's by choice.
oh my gosh, they're horrible. And then the stent that they put in, left a stent in me for 8 days. Oh my gosh, sometimes I said that was worse than the kidney stone itself. So now it's all behind me, and I can say, okay, I can check that off the list and moving on.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, so talk to us. Well, one, I think we need to start with your story of triumph, because I know I've learned little bits and pieces from our conversation when I was on your show as a guest, which thank you very much for that opportunity. So can you talk to us about your story of trauma to triumph?
Yeah, Teri, absolutely. So thank you so much for introduction. And I think it would be a good place just to let people know where world's best is coming from. Because some people hear it and like, that's a very ego thing. Not at all. This is my commitment to myself to become the world's best. And there is no competition for world's best life optimization coach, but it's my commitment to myself. Every morning I wake up and I ask myself, how would the world's best life optimization coach conduct yourself? And this came from a many years of struggle and suffering in silence. And my story starts when I was 4 years old, and my biological father left our family and never returned. And my mom became a 24 years old, a mother of two during the Russian economic depression. And I was born in Russia. And I remember 6 years we've been struggling mentally and physically and financially. Wouldn't have much money to pay for food or electricity. So I remember we would spend a lot of nights just in the darkness when my mom would sing me a song. And when I was 10, a knight in shining armor came into our life, my stepfather. And we thought, finally, we have a protector, we have a support in our life. But a few months later, he revealed his true face. He was an army guy, horribly abusive and controlling and manipulative man. And I remember me and my younger brother, we learned quick to obey the rules. And we realized quickly that children's emotions mean nothing to this person. So it was like an army, to be honest, in our house. You have to go to bed at 10 p.m. And God forbidden you make any noise.
Oh,
Even if you are sick, even if you have temperature and you need a medicine, I remember myself, I would rather die than open this door and make any noise. Otherwise, he had his army leather belt that he would grab and punish us until he decides to stop. That's enough. And I got used to being such a good girl, you know, whatever you tell me I will do. I became such a perfectionist. I became a people pleaser. I learned how to please my stepfather so he's not getting angry. every every day I would rush through my from school to home just to know and spend 4 hours cleaning the house, making sure everything like is perfect and spotless. Because if he would come home and find a hair on the floor or even a drop, I would grab by my neck and just pushed into this floor with my face or smashed my face against the wall or something.
wow.
So and
That,
imagine growing up 10 years old, 12 years old. This is the time when you are such a child, when you want to enjoy the life, when you want to go out and spend time with your friends, and instead you have to clean and cook by the time he comes home and my mom comes home.
yeah, that
And
was he affectionate at all, or was it just always just angry and
he wasn't affectionate at all that I can remember. We had a good time. He would laugh, he would buy us things. We would go on adventure, or we've never went on holidays as a family, never ever. Um, but he would take us, to the beach or something, and I'm pretty sure he was a bipolar because within a second, within a snap, he could change his behavior from being a good person to a completely disaster. If something would go not how he wanted, you know this face when you become like your eyes become red, and he just in a second would become like a demonic look. That was the scariest moment in our lives ever. We would literally living and preparing ourselves for this moment in any second.
right?
Walking on the eggshells, it was like a normal life. We didn't know. By the way, we didn't know that there is some different life can be. So by the time I was 15, we normalized this life.
Hmm.
You know, physical and verbal abuse was like part of our day. But when you think things can become even worse, when I turned 15, he started systematically sexually abusing me. And it resulted in 2 pregnancies and in 2 forced illegal abortions. And one abortion damaged my reproductive system.
Oh,
And now, when I wanted to become a mother, which was the most cherished dream, I had some challenges. I have had 16 consecutive miscarriages. including 2 ectopic pregnancies. And one ectopic nearly claimed my life in 2019 when my tube was ruptured. But Teri, I'm telling you this story not for any empathy or sympathy. I turned my past into my superpower. And honestly, after what I went through, I don't have a bad day. There is nothing that can upset me anymore. Especially, so many people get caught up in a bad or negative emotions when they drive in a traffic jam. I love this time when we are in a traffic jam because I can have this time to myself to think about something, to process something, to create something, or listen to the audiobook. People underestimate this time, honestly. But what's
Yeah.
happened?
Well, I love the idea of utilizing just taking a different perspective and switching it around and saying, I'm
Hmm.
not going to use this time to become irritated and annoyed, but really just, all right, so I've been gifted this 20 minutes stuck in this traffic, and what can I do with it? How can I turn it around into a positive? What a great mindset.
That's exactly the thing. What positive things I can get from this situation?
Yes. Yeah. And one thing to go back to just for a second is when you were talking, I remember I had one sibling as well, a younger sibling, and us talking later after we had come out of our abusive situation, how we found comfort in the chaos. And so when you were speaking, that yes, it was our norm, that's what we just thought, that's how life was lived. And so yes, when we came out into the real world,
Hmm.
we it it was hard for us to not be in chaos. Did you find the same?
100%. And I want to tell you the story. What's happened next? I left when I was 21. I left the house, and my parents split at those time because my father said, "If you leaving the house, I don't need your mother either." So he expelled her. She didn't know anything. She
Oh,
didn't expect it. And I remember moving out, getting a dog, Pomeranian, because I was looking for someone who will love me, and I had so much love I wanted to give. Getting a dog, it was the best time possible, and I honestly thought I finally get rid of this terrible and horrible and horror literally in my life, but not. What I've noticed, Terry, I brought this behavior with me. I became like him. I became so violent. Became so angry at people. I had high expectations from people. A part of being a people pleaser, a part of being so afraid to speak up. I was so quiet at work, but when I would come home, I would just unleash my rage on my poor Pomeranian. And that's what my stepfather was doing to us every time he would come home, and it felt like we were the punching bag for him. Because as a kid, you can't respond on a way as a human.
right.
And my mom didn't stop his tyrannical parenting because in Russia at those point, for women with 2 kids, it was shameful to be a single. And so she gave him all the opportunities, all the rights to do whatever he wants. And chaos literally was hunting me all the time. And when I went to the relationships, into my relationships, I was sabotaging my partners. I was doing everything, like literally everything what my stepfather was doing, and I was craving for this, for this attitude from my partners to physically or verbally abuse me. me, because not that I wanted, but it was, I think, subconsciously
Hmm.
happening. And I remember first time when I left the house, and I just want to for your listeners to really understand this point. What really helped me is one thing: decide, decide. Enough is enough. And I promise you, as soon as you decide, as soon as you commit to something, the right people, the right time, the opportunities start coming from nowhere. That's what I've noticed, because I was leaving my house. I was 21. I just started my job as a waiter. I rented the apartment. I remember I couldn't find where I'm gonna live. But and just one person came to me and he said, by the way, my neighbor is renting the apartment out. I remember I was seeking the advertising. I wrote on the paper, I'm looking for the apartment, and I was walking around and putting it on a door, on people's doors. Um, or like the special things for the advertising. And I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't have much money to pay for it. And yeah, one person saw me doing this, and he said, my neighbor is renting your apartment. I think you should talk to her. And she gave me her apartment, rented it out for exactly the price I needed.
Yes, and again, so the energy that you shifted again, in the
Hmm.
energy you were putting out is what started coming back to you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Now,
And
did your mom move in with you, or did she find her own place?
she moved in with my grandmother. But what
Good.
was happening, Terry? She she was so codependent on my stepfather. She was in a codependent relationship with him. And if someone doesn't know what codependent means, it's literally when one person emotionally emotionally depends on other. It's when parents allow their alcoholic kids stay in their house instead of helping them and enabling them to drink.
Mhm.
It's when a woman stays in a house with abusive man and is not leaving him because she's emotionally attached to him. That's something similar, and I saw it now when I look back. I've realized there is a codependent relationship with him, was with him. She moved with my grandmother, and I wanted to find something separate, um, because I couldn't stay with her. She was in a horrible, horrible place, in the deepest depression I've ever seen. I didn't know that depression exists, by the way, until then. And she was in a depression for 7 years
Wow.
after they separated.
Yeah. So now how did you find your way onto the healing path?
It's a very good question, Terry. I'm glad you asked. uh, 4 years ago in September, I finally met the partner of my dreams. He stopped me on the street of Melbourne. I moved to Australia by those time. He stopped me on the street and he looked at my eyes and he said, "Excuse me, but you are stunning. And I wonder if you would like to have a drink with me one day." Now, this guy doesn't drink, doesn't smoke. He doesn't do drugs or anything. Uh, and all those things were on my list. And a year and a half uh, into our relationship, I think it was my miscarriage number 11.
Oh,
We were in a hospital, and the doctor called me aside and he said, "Anna, you had 4 miscarriages with your ex partner, and you had another 8 miscarriages, or was it seven miscarriages with your current partner. So it's not about your partner, it's about you. And I did a huge investigation, and 10 different doctors couldn't find any physical reason. And he said, Anna, it's not about physical issues, it's something in your heart, in your mind that you need
Oh,
to look at. And Teri, it struck me, and I knew exactly what it was. And I told my partner Laban what's happened to me as a teenager. And his response was, he responded the way I was always hoping for. He was able to provide me the best support ever. And that's how my healing journey began. 2 years through the emotional roller coaster, honestly, when I first I denied that this sexual abuse impacted my life in any way. And I didn't want to tell to anyone apart of my partner. And he was the very second person I've ever told Teri. I I was so terrified that people will find out and they will just disappointed at me or think I'm broken or don't want to work with me or be in in a relationship in a friendship. It was a hard time. And I remember my memories started to coming up. My flashbacks started to coming up. Flashbacks when my stepfather would physically tear apart my younger brother, my 6 years old younger brother, and I couldn't stop him. And this suddenly, this rage, this anxiety, this pain, huge feelings of shame came out. I I found myself standing on a 38th floor in our apartment, in our balcony, looking down and thinking, Anna, just jump, and it will be over. I was desperately seeking for a peace, for this internal ease feeling. Because when people saying, when you start looking back and everything starts to coming back, it can re-traumatize you.
mhm.
But honestly, it feels like, you're standing in front of this dark tunnel, and when you go in there, you won't be able to see anything. It's gonna be lonely, it's gonna be dark, it's gonna be scary. But that's how it feels like living in a quietness.
Oh,
It's lonely, it's scary, it's painful. And I remember going through my healing journey, it felt like going through the tunnel. And when I came up on another side, oh my goodness, this blue sky, these green trees, the birds are singing. It's the best feeling ever. It's not going through the healing journey that re-traumatizing us. It's keeping the secret and holding this burden that re-traumatizing us again and again and again.
yes. I remember my moment that was the same, standing in a shower with a razor blade in my hand and thinking, just make it end, make this pain stop. And it was long before I had started my healing journey. And thankfully, my two oldest children, their faces flashed in front of me, and I was like, oh, I could
What am I
never,
doing?
ever, ever do this to my children. And I ended up taking myself to the hospital because I knew I needed help at that point. Um, but yes, it's at that point. I remember again when I started on my journey, being what you just said so resonated. Being in my own body, there was no safe place. Like
Mm-mm.
being in my own body was terrifying because you're right. Those flashbacks were there. Those memories were there. Those panic attacks were there. The scary feelings were there. All of that was there. And at the time, I had no idea how to live with that, how to release it, how to process it. And so, yes, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh. And just what you said about you make it into the light, and it's like, oh, it's so beautiful and wonderful that you and I can't help but then reach our hands back into that dark place and help others out of it because we've lived it.
Exactly, exactly. And I slowly started to realize where is my current behaviors are coming from. Because as I mentioned, Terry, I was such a people pleaser.
Yeah.
I would I would say yes to people when I wanted to say no. I would try to make people happy, by just doing more for them or dressing up better or uh, you know giving more money or something just so they love me. I was seeking validation from outside, big time. I was working for 10 hours a day just to prove myself, just just uh, to do not let people down.
Right.
Making mistakes was like a death. Honestly, I was so terrified of making mistakes. I was such a perfectionist that it was holding me back so bad. And when I started to connecting those points, Terry, where is this coming from? I realized I need help. I honestly need help. And my first time when I told my story, I remember I had such a huge release, and um, it was a lady. She was a counselor. She was horrified. She didn't expect this is coming. It was the best thing I've ever done for myself. Start telling my story. And I know it's not the case with everyone. And if you're not ready to start sharing your story, write it down. Just write it down like no one is gonna read it. And one of the best advice I've ever received is start with the most scariest moment in your life, with the deepest, darkest. It has such a therapeutical effect on your body, on your mind, and on your life.
It's so true. If I would pan my camera right now, you'd see a big pile of journals right here on the corner of my desk and filled with, yes, all of that and then some. And oh my gosh, writing can be so cathartic. And another thing I've told people too is that if you write it down, but you're terrified someone's going to find it or read it, or you'll keel over dead, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's your story out there, right? Then you can just do a little ceremonious, like say a prayer over it or whatever you need to do, burn it
Mm-hmm.
and release it, but at least you've gotten it out of you and you've released and processed. And yes, oh, writing is so cathartic.
Yes. My second advice for people would be the first is decide. The second is surround yourself with people who had a similar experience, who went through this experience, and who came on another side even more stronger, even more positive, uh, with such strong learnings that you can learn from. Because I remember I was looking for someone who can answer those questions. Why it happened to me? How did I attract this into my life? Why he was my father? He raised me from 10 years old. How can he possibly do this to me? How he can possibly even think of me? I just turned 15 years old. I was like a ugly duckling. Like, and I was looking, I started to having so many questions. Why this, why that? And I remember I just went to Google, and Google knows everything and everyone. And I found this lady. Her name is Dr. Bridget Cooper, and it was her talk about pain on TED Talks. And I remember watching her talk. She was sharing her story how her father was abusing her sexually since she was a toddler, and
Oh,
her mom knew everything. And I was watching her, and I was thinking, how confident you are, how open and honest you are, and how authentic you are. I wonder if one day I can be like her. I wonder if one day I can share my story to help others to heal.
oh,
And it was such a wonderful moment for me, Terry. And she shared that she went through a healing journey, and she forgave her father and her mother. And this really helped me to do my healing journey. And Terry, I forgave my stepfather for doing this to me. I forgave my biological father for leaving us and never be there for me when I needed him the most. I forgave my mom for not being able to protect me. And most importantly, I forgave myself. I forgave myself because I've been blaming myself for so many years for what happened to me.
yeah.
And this is the most difficult, probably, part of childhood sexual abuse.
Yes. Well,
And
I know you and I have talked about it before because I went through a forgiveness journey too.
yes,
And it's, I say it's not a requirement, but wow, everyone I know who's gone the forgiveness route has had such a release, such a weight lifted.
and in September last year, in 2021, Terry, I finally had the courage to tell my mom what was going on.
Oh,
I was on the WhatsApp on a video call with her. I was coming from my 11th hypnotherapy session, and I was boiling my eyes. I was crying. I was ready. I knew I was ready. And I wanted to tell her, not because I needed some empathy. I wanted to tell her because I wanted her to start her own healing journey. Because up until now, up until September last year, Terry, she was waiting for my stepfather to come back, and it's been nearly 15 years. She's been waiting for him. She couldn't get into a relationship because she thought maybe it's her fault. Maybe she's done something. And every time she would try to get back with him, I would become angry. It's like, Mama, only if you knew how terrible this person is. Only if you knew. And I finally told her what he's done to me. And he said, Dora, why didn't you tell me before? And I didn't for all these years because he was he was telling me that if I ever revealed my secret, he my younger brother and my mom will struggle. And knowing how abusive he was, I believed him. And he inserted so much shame in me, telling if my mom will ever find out, she will hate me for breaking her woman's happiness. And for me to lose my mom was the worstest thing possible. And she asked me, why didn't you tell me before? And I said, Mom, I thought you're gonna hate me. And she said, Anna, I will never ever hate you. You are my daughter. And even if the whole world will be against you, I will always stand by your side and pass you the patrons. Terry, 20 years just flied in front of my eyes. And I thought, oh my goodness, why did I wait for 20 years to tell her. And what's the best thing ever, Teri? We became like this. We became so close. We became so connected. Our relationship it has improved dramatically. There wasn't the wall anymore. There wasn't an elephant in the room anymore. And she became a mama bear straight away. She became so protective over me, and I felt her strength, and it gave me the strength to testify against my stepfather. And I went back to Russia and I faced him, and I told my story to everyone. I published my story in the biggest magazine ever, in the biggest magazine in my hometown, and I took my power back. He was
Yay.
so miserable, Teri. He was so miserable. If I would spend 20 more years thinking how my mom would react, how what my stepfather would tell me, what people will think of me, I would probably die miserable, doing exactly the things what I've been doing for 20 years, pleasing people, being quiet, afraid, fearful, anxious. No, I took my power back. And Terry, what I've gone through, nothing can stop me now. Nothing can scare me now. And when I published my story in my hometown, I left my email address saying, "Girls, if you are going through a similar situation and you have no one to talk to, send me an email." Hundreds and hundreds of emails. My inbox just exploded. And I received so many stories from women and men who never ever told what's happened to them. And they felt compelled to share because they knew I'm not gonna judge them. I'm not gonna, you know, make them guilty in what's happened to them. And I just decided to become the biggest voice for those people. and
Yes.
and it's not about me anymore. It's not about my story anymore. It's helping people to understand that the more we keep quiet, the longer we keep quiet, the more sexual abuse is happening. So I feel responsible for those children, as a childhood sexual abuse survivor, to protect them, to stop this crime from happening.
Oh, well, thank you because your voice is needed and what a gift. And I know when I finally started putting my truth out there, oh, wow, the response. And you're right. People would send me private messages through Facebook or call me or text me or say, "Hey, can we meet up and, have lunch together?" And then they would tell me their story and say, "I'd never told anyone before about this, and this is what happened to me." And uh, yes, and sharing our truths, that's where soul connections happen. That's where healing happens. So yes, what a beautiful gift. So now your work as a coach, do you do one-on-one coaching? Do you do group coaching or both?
I'm doing a one-on-one coaching at the moment. And I'm also using a hypnotherapy in my coaching because hypnotherapy helped me a lot. And what I realized through hypnotherapy and through coaching, I was able to face my deepest, darkest. But my coach was holding my hand when I was having the most difficult times. She was there for me. She believed in me. She was so confident about me before even I became confident about myself. And so I incorporated this in my coaching practices, hypnotherapy and life optimization, when we look into three pillars. It's your health, your career, and your relationship. Because I was struggling in my career. I was working at the bank up until last year. And I remember going to work, even though a beautiful organization, beautiful people, but I realized it wasn't my destiny. It wasn't what I was looking for. And so now I'm helping people to find their why. What's their purpose on this planet? And it's the fulfillment theory. You would agree with me when people send you those messages, it's how it makes you feel. It's this the fulfillment. Finally, I'm doing something that is worthy.
Oh, for sure. I call this my soul work because it really does. It lights up my soul. I know that
Mm-hmm.
when the work I'm doing is resonating, and I know I can tell with you too because you just have this beautiful glow about you. When we met, your energy is just it's so embracing. Like you pulled me in, and I know so many people feel that way. um, and it's so authentic. I think, and it's authentic because it's your gift to the world that you're giving all of us survivors.
Exactly, Terry. And I remember from our conversation, the main thing is to eliminate all those negative beliefs, all those negative feelings that are holding us back from being the person who we meant to be, who we want to be.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. So I know we could sit here and talk for another 3 hours, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. Is there anything that you wanted to touch upon that we didn't have a chance to talk about?
The main thing, if your listeners, if your listeners are having trouble with processing their childhood sexual abuse, the main thing I want to say, it is not your fault. It is not your fault. It's never ever your fault or child fault. I remember when someone told me when my article went published, they were like, "Oh, you're like 15 years old. You knew what you're doing. You probably provocated your stepfather on abusing you." One thing I've learned, even if 15 years old girl or boy naked jump on their father's uh, in their father's arms and try to kiss or something, a normal man, a responsible man and woman will always put them aside, say, "Hey, you go and put your clothes on. You're having some troubles here. We need to talk."
Right.
Never ever responsible man or woman will use this situation.
Right.
And if some of your listeners are ready to do this work, if they are ready to go through this tunnel and come up on another side, find their superpower, I would love to help them because I know how it feels. I know how it feels on one side and I know how it feels on another side. So would love to gift your listeners a 45 minutes a breakthrough session where we would go through 28 powerful questions where you can find where you can realize what was happening to you in the past and how it relates and how it impacts your life in the future.
Wonderful. So now how do they connect with you and sign up for that?
The best way is to go on my website. It's annaditchburn.com. You can also find me on Facebook. It's Mrs. Anna Ditchburn, and Instagram or LinkedIn, the same name.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Or just let Terry know.
Yes,
We are great
exactly.
friends now.
Yes, I know. Well, and I saw when you put out on Facebook that it was at your mom's birthday, and you had put out and the pictures of you two together. I mean, it just melted my heart. So you can just tell the love and relationship. It's so beautiful. I loved seeing it. So I love being connected because yes, way to stay in each other's lives, and it's wonderful.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, it's just been such a joy to have you here on the show. Thank you again for your beautiful energy, the work you're doing to guide others along their healing journey. So thank you.
Thank you so much for this amazing opportunity, Teri. I appreciate it a lot. And your podcast is one of the most important podcasts
Oh.
in the world. You do such an amazing job. So
Oh,
thank you.
thank you. Made my heart smile, so thank you. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock again. Just wanted to thank you for listening to the episode today and remind you to visit my website as well as the academy.teriwellbrock.com for the courses. But if you go to my website, teriwellbrock.com, you can sign up for my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, which is also jam-packed with information and strategies and blog pieces and guest blog pieces and links to shows. And just a great space for, again, healing. Thanks for, again, being here and being a part of this healing space. I very much appreciate you. All right. Bye-bye.